get stuck in this week. So much to look back on the Dublin Racing Festival. What was your highlight? So many of them. We're going to be speaking to Martin Dixon and Don Barber in due course. Was it the Sporting Life Bridges in the Irish Arkle with El Fabiolo coming home clear? What a performance, what a race run. At a solid gallop throughout, and he was ridden to success by Daryl Jacob, and afterwards he caught up with Ben Linfoot.
Daryl Jacob, winning jockey of the Goff's Irish Arkle here at Leopardstown Dublin Racing Festival on El Fabiolo. Just sum up that performance for us, Daryl.
Look, it was obviously magic. Everyone's, I've always held the horse in very, very high regard from sitting him on a home, and I thought he'd improved an awful lot from last year to this year, and I thought he was always going to be a better chaser than what he is hurdler, and it's just magic. Just Simon and Isaac and Anthony are here. Big day, big weekend for us, and like you said, to get the first ride, first winner, Grade 1 on a really, really exciting horse is it's very, very special.
And it looked to be a well-run race with Dysart Dynamo taking them along. Did it feel like that to you?
Strong all the way, but my lad was good. He was keen over the first 4 furlongs. I got him to meet the first down the back slightly wrong, just to get him back on his hunks, and then he travelled great the whole way down the back straight. And I think bar my mistake on him 4 out, I thought he was very, very good. And I got a nice little breather from 3 to 2, and then I had enough momentum then that I knew he'd stay the whole way home. And
he had a great battle with John Bon at Aintree last year. Could have a great battle with him at Cheltenham this year in the Sporting Life Arkle.
I think they could. I know John Bon's improved as well, but I'm fairly confident this lad's improved an awful lot from last year as well. And Chaser was always going to be the make of him, but then again, I suppose Chasing's going to be making of John Bon. So it could be a really, really exciting race come Cheltenham in March.
Really good, wasn't he? We're going to talk about the rest of it, as I said before, in the company of Martin and Dan. Just because we've heard from Daryl, how impressed were you?
Oh, massively. I mean, I said a few weeks ago now where, and I think even on the show before last week, I said that he was the one I was wanting to get Dysart Dynamo beaten with. Martin and I both agreed that there are holes in Dysart Dynamo. I thought he was a very likeable horse, really. But his presence ensured that El Fabiolo could really express himself, and not only to recover from the mistake, but to then clear the last, 2 or 3 lengths ahead, end up winning by 10. It was pretty stunning. I think longer term, his old rival John Bon has shown he's maybe a slightly more athletic horse, and his jumping might get him away from El Fabiolo when they meet in the Arkle. But in terms of engine, I really don't think there's a lot between them.
It's going to be some matchup in the Sporting Life Arkle.
It will, and you think back to Aintree last year, there was only a neck between them. Now, at that point of his career, El Fabiolo came straight off the back of a maiden hurdle win, and he'd been off the track 2 and a bit months at the time, so he was very inexperienced taking on John Bon at the time. And I suppose with that in mind, and just how lightly raced El Fabiolo is, the fact that he's a year younger than John Bon as well, it is possible. I'll take Dan's point about John Bon's jumping, and we'll get an opportunity to see that again at the weekend. But it is possible El Fabiolo is the more progressive of them. And that was a big jump forward, I felt, at the weekend to destroy the field in the manner that he did. And it ended up a stronger field than maybe we were even anticipating here 7 days ago, because Appreciate It took him on as well as Dysart Dynamo. Banbridge, I think it's fair to say, was back on point with his good run in second place, but he was still clearing right away from them, strong through the line. It was really impressive, wasn't it? And like I say, not much ground to make up on John Bon, maybe the more progressive of the two. I can see it both ways in terms of which one you'd want to back for the Arkle at this stage.
Okay, what about the Gold Cup picture? Galopin Des Champs galloped to victory in the Irish Gold Cup. First take?
Well, again, hugely impressive. I mean, I was watching it through the first half of the race thinking, how relaxed is he going to be? Let's watch this run with a mind on what we think in terms of his Gold Cup credentials, his, whether he'll be quite as effective over the longer distance. I can't see any reason. There'd be nothing about the performance that made me think that he wouldn't be fine, and maybe even better over an extra couple of furlongs, to be honest. He dropped his head, didn't he, through the first half of the race, and came home really strongly.
I just was taken by how different he was. This time last year, he was a great jumper, too flamboyant at times.
Yeah.
How behind the bridle he raced, and to give him every chance to see out the trip, and he will see out the trip. I was really taken by it. Yeah,
it is his strength at the line, isn't it? A horse that you maybe have slight stamina queries coming into a race at the top level, and he takes the last maybe a length up. Again, it's that strength at the finish that El Fabiolo displayed, just to power right away. We'll say later with a view to Cheltenham, but we've got another 2.5 furlongs. It's not looking like the ground on current weather forecast is going to be anything other than maybe usual good to soft. But I do think Statler ran a really eye-catching race.
Do you? I don't.
It was more so purely for the prism of a Gold Cup. It was the fact that everything was hunky-dory until he made a mistake at probably the worst time, 3 out, where the race is starting to develop. He was on the back foot. I think he's a dour stayer, no doubt.
Lord Windermere, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's classier than him, though. I do. I think he still got past Fury Road in the end and got running left in him. The likelihood
Fury
is...
Road, where would he finish in the Gold Cup?
Well,
Ninth?
Maybe, but he was still giving. He still gave Galopin Des Champs most to do for that race. He did get Galopin Des Champs off the bridle briefly. I think it's more that thinking over an extra 2.5 furlongs, if he can avoid mistakes, and I see no reason why he won't, in a properly run Gold Cup on a stiff track, I think he's a perfect type for it. I went back in again. I'd already backed him for the race anti-post each way, and I had a bit more on.
My big hope for the Gold Cup is that Aplutard bounces back.
I'd love to see it.
You know, everyone at this moment in time, to some extent, myself included, you can't really knock anything to do with Galopin Des Champs at this moment. But if Aplutard was back where he was at, winning the Gold Cup by such a distance last season, I mean, that'd be, it would, but we just don't know whether he's...
It never seems to happen, does it? You think the perfect scenario, you bounce back, Galopin Des Champs is on his game. And
it's unlikely, but it'd be a special race if that's how it developed.
He was trained by Willie Mullins and ridden to success by Paul Townend. They took the Irish Champion Hurdle as well with State Man. Again, very good.
Very hard to sort of question him. I suppose he kind of had his own way a little bit. He was too good for them. But I do think Vauban can get closer to him on another day in a different tempo of race. Obviously, this was a small field. State Man sort of dictated matters a little bit. Vauban was a little...
first as well.
Yeah, Vauban was a bit keen, wasn't he, after that, and just lit up at the back of the field. I think in a different tempo of race with a bit more time, Vauban can still improve enough to at least make a bit more of a race of it with State Man than he's been able to so far. He's obviously going to have an each-way chance in a Champion Hurdle, but State Man... Yeah, he's uncomplicated. He's still improving, isn't he? And this season, he hasn't put a foot wrong, but obviously Constitution Hill is a completely different test altogether.
Yeah, and we're recording this on Tuesday morning. The news broke that Honeysuckle were going to see her again in the Mayor's Hurdle. Thoughts?
I'd rather she went for the champion, to be honest. It looks like, I mean, maybe it's just opportunity, but it looks like Nicky might be edging that way with Epatante as well, knowing that she can't beat her stablemate. Hey, I think there's something slightly noble about the old champion going out on his or her sword and handing over to a new kid on the block. Obviously, it's highly likely to be Constitution Hill. I think back to the days of Corto and Denman cracking at the expense of Long Run and horses like that. I feel that's like the noble way to go out. But that mare's race is suddenly developing a lot of depth, and we know the ongoing purpose that it's serving is that it's keeping more mares in training. Quick reflection on that Champion Hurdle, though, last weekend is the proximity of Zanna here. I'm thinking how far Constitution Hill would beat him by. I honestly, the State Man's a very good progressive horse, but Constitution is a 1 in a million. I just think he'll thrash a lot of them.
Honeysuckle, thoughts?
Yeah, I think you could sit here all day and discuss the Mayor's Hurdle, whether it should or shouldn't be there, what you could do with it, how you could change it. But I think as we sit here, it isn't going to be changed. This year is as it is, and they've got the option of going the Mayor's route. And if I was Kenny Alexander and connections of Honeysuckle, I would be doing exactly the same thing, if I'm being honest with you. I think that is an opportunity for her to win another Cheltenham Festival race, and I think in the wider scheme, let's praise them for how they've campaigned previously, because 10 years ago we were looking at Quavega going to the Cheltenham Festival every single year. What was 6 years on the spin? And winning Mayor's Hurdle, and they never changed it. And at least with Honeysuckle, they gave us that opportunity. They didn't do that. They didn't duck away from the Champion Hurdle when she was good enough to win it, and it was the right decision to make at that point in time. So I think in terms of her career and where she's at, they're making the right and the sensible decision. Like I say, you could sit here and discuss whether or not it should or shouldn't be an option for them, and that's a whole different debate. But at the moment, it is an option, and I think they're choosing the right one. I do hope that Epatante goes down that route as well now, because I actually think in its own right that will be a fantastic race and a great. Well, exactly, and you want that competition, don't you? We don't want another odds-on favourite at the Cheltenham Festival. So if you've got Epatante, Marie's Rock, and Honeysuckle against each other, that is a really, really good race in prospect itself. And like I say, obviously, maybe some people would wish that they were all in a Champion Hurdle, but they're not going to be.
Okay. There was lots to take out of Leopardstown. Quickly, unlucky horse Lozimuth.
Well, yeah, she wasn't she? I thought she did extremely well under the circumstances. Winner's a very likeable horse, but she was dead unfortunate to meet all the trouble that she did.
Mullins, and Patrick Mullins not only rode winners as well, he bred the final winner, and once again Ben Linfoot caught up with the jockey.
We're joined by Patrick Mullins after day one of the DRF, and Patrick, a couple of seconds for you on the day, but some good runs, particularly from Statler in the Irish Gold Cup. He stayed on really well.
Yeah, I was delighted with him. He jumped really well. He was good long and short. Probably could have done with going a half stride faster, but I just needed someone to bring me along. He's not maybe a natural front runner that jumps and goes. We missed the second last, which just put us on the back foot, and we got outpaced around the home bend. But he stayed on really well then, and you'd have to think that 3 mile 2 and maybe a stronger gallop will help him narrow the gap to Galopin Des Champs. I'm not sure we can turn it around, but you never know.
Yeah, Galopin Des Champs, just briefly on him, he was fantastic today, wasn't he?
He was very good, settled very well, jumped very well. Watching it live from Statler's back, I was thinking, this isn't as impressive as it should be. But watching the replay, I love the way he kind of got knocked over coming into the last bit. He quickened up, but I love where he pulled up. All the other horses, we all pulled up after 100 yards after the line, and he went down past the next fence. So he didn't fall over the line. He galloped out and through it, and that's a great sign for stepping up to the Gold Cup trip.
And Facts Fouling the bumper, maybe just bumped into one. You pulled well clear of the third.
Yeah, he's improved hugely. He's just found 2 extra gears. He really learnt from the first day. I was very wary of John Gleeson's horse. He really impressed me when he won at Tipperary. He beat Rackall Boy. I thought that was a really sharp performance. He's a flatbred horse. He'd probably be a listed or Group 3 horse in the flat, I'd imagine. The ground was good, and we didn't really go fast enough. I was hoping Special Cadeau and Chosen Witness would stride along a bit faster than they did. It turned into a little bit of a sprint, which suited the flat horse. I wouldn't mind taking him on again in the champion bumper on maybe slower ground.
Great day for you, Patrick, particularly for you personally on the concluding race there with Fun.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I bought her dam 6 years ago in foal with Fun, and I bought her because she was a full sister to York Hill, and at the time I thought York Hill was going to go win the Gold Cup, and he actually never won another race for us after we bought the mare. But anyway, she has a very good pedigree going back to the listener. Dooney's Gate is in it. He was my first winner of fences. And this is the first foal. Now my mother does a lot of the work breeding her, and she actually named her after the Beach Boys song. But magic how often do you get a chance to ride a horse you bred in a good race?
Just reflecting on the rest of the day, State Man, really impressive winner of the Irish Champion Hurdle.
He was. Look, he probably ran to a similar level of form as he did in a Christmas True Vauban, I imagine. But having Honeysuckle there puts some substance on the form. Look, on the visuals, we still have a bit going to catch Constitution Hill, but at least we have a horse that has a chance. And if you have a chance, you never know.
And the quote from Willie after Facile Vega's defeat was, "They're not machines," but Ilite Temps was there to pick up the pieces in style.
Yeah, look, I don't know. Some people are wondering did they go hard in front, but if they'd gone hard in front, I would have expected Facile Vega to get to the last and get tired. He was beaten so far. He was beaten jumping second last, you could tell. And some things amiss, so at least you can just draw a line through it. Hopefully it's nothing too physical. But Ilite Temps, he has that solid Grade 1 form. He probably ran to a similar level that he did at Christmas maybe, and Facile obviously misfired, but he's a jukebox jury, and he'll have to have a great chance in someone staying novice hurdles in Cheltenham.
And finally, I think that's probably the last time we're going to see Gaelic Warrior in a handicap.
When I said staying novice hurdles, I imagine he might be going for a spree Ilite Temps by now. But look, I was actually surprised Willie did it, but I can understand why, because he was probably very well in his mark. He could have been even better in, perhaps, if we hadn't gone to Clonmel or the likes. But look, he was fired in 143. You're hoping he's a 155 plus horse. He won. He did jump out to his right when he was on his own. That is a concern going to, it's a concern on the old track for the Supreme or the Ballymore, whichever way you go. It's not ideal, but he nearly got away with it last year, and he has the raw ability maybe to overcome it.
Great stuff. Well done, Patrick.
Good to hear, and well done to Patrick Mullins. And plenty of love for State Man, but plenty of love for the 2-day festival.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it may be slightly object lesson for people that Facile Vega, one of the rare blips on the week for them. Lossiemouth would be another that Martin just mentioned, but this notion that everything is a certainty, people backing this horse at evens from that far out, and in terms of ability, yeah, maybe it was never in question, but stuff can go wrong, and now you've gone from a horse who's going to be one of the shortest priced supreme horses we've seen to possibly and probably not going to even run in the race. So it's not always plain sailing, is it, for these top horses? And Willie, for all his dominance, has had 3 or 4 horses that are missing the season in their entirety. Still got to get Allaho back. So, yeah, the trials and tribs, I suppose, of racing at the top level.
This weekend, we're hoping to have racing at a top level. There's racing at Newbury, the Betfair Hurdle, but they can't water. Why can't they water? Let's find out where Clerk, of course, and get an update on the ground with Keith Utterson.
At the moment, we're good ground, and we're sort of holding up pretty well at that. It's sort of normal midwinter, tacky, bit sort of, it'll ride on the dead side. Like most places, it's probably walking a little bit quicker than it'll ride. So we leave it good ground for the time being. But added to that, the track has been covered with frost protection since Sunday. So we'll leave that in place and see how we go, see how the forecast plays out for the rest of the week, whether it improves early enough for us to take the covers off before Saturday. I'm not too sure yet. So we'll see how we are. I don't anticipate it drying out too much, and we're just good ground at the moment.
It's a problem. Explain the problem. You can't water at the minute. Is that right?
We can't. Our irrigation capabilities are governed by our Environment Agency abstraction license. So we have a borehole on site that we take water directly into our irrigation system. And that irrigation license from the Environment Agency runs from March the 1st to November the 30th. Right. It's a historic position that we've been unable to do that. And normally in the winter months, you don't need to do it. But we've been planning for quite some time to look at increasing our capacity and to enable us to water during the winter months.
Do you envisage Good to Firm sneaking in by Saturday, looking at the forecast at present?
It's a possibility, Niall. Whether it really got to that side, because talking to a few trainers about a moment, had a chat with Paul Nichols the other day, and Peter Niven this morning, who's keen to come along. And they're saying, this time of year, even though it's walking a bit quicker, it's nothing like sort of beginning of the season, October or even November ground, or when we get into the longer days when it's warmer in March and April and it dries out. Because basically, we managed to catch up a bit with rainfall. We were very dry here last summer. We had a lot of rain the end of December after it was frozen at that point, and also the beginning of January. So I'm not too sure whether we dry out to proper Good to Firm ground, purely because it's still very cold. We're barely in the middle of February, so it's sort of slow, goodish ground at the moment.
Tacky, we know what we're getting. Keith, thank you very much for the update. We look forward to seeing you Saturday.
My pleasure. Thank you, Niall.
Bit of a conundrum then, isn't it? It's probably going to ride deadish ground. Maybe Good to Firm might sneak into it.
Yeah, it's not going to be ideal for a lot of them, is it? But Filey Bay, short price favourite at the moment for the Betfair Hurdle. Progressive Emmett Mullins horse owned by JP Manis. He's actually had 2 trips to Britain already for the Emmett Mullins yard and won both of them. But he looks on the skinny side, doesn't he? 23 entries, a little bit less than I'd have imagined actually for such a high value handicap.
21, 22.
Yeah, it is. You just
they've probably got wind, haven't they? Connections that the ground will be completely different to what we expect. Yeah,
but I mean, it's not the first time it's been like it, but it's such a high value race. You just think more people would maybe throw their hat in the ring a little bit. But Master Chewy is the horse that catches my eye amongst the entries. Bottom weight. Hopefully he does get in with a couple likely to come out, I'd imagine. Nigel Twiston-Davies has a good record in the race. He's a novice. I was at Cheltenham earlier on in the season when he's a strong travelling second to Attica, and I thought at that time this is a horse that's going to be well suited by handicaps. I'm a bit surprised he's been given a mark of 124, to be honest. I thought he was probably valued for a bit higher than that.
Splashy Ginge, he won it as a novice, didn't he?
Yes, and so did Ballyandy.
Yeah.
I think over here of 3 trainers when I think of the Betfair Hurdle. Obviously the favourite's trained in Ireland, but I think definitely of Twister. I think of Gary Moore, he's got a good record in it. And I think of Nicky Henderson, and I think First Street's overpriced. A horse who he's going to have no problem with quickish ground. I know he's slightly back in trip, but he's got a really good Newbury record. placed in the race last season. I don't think this will be as strong, just because, as we said, the field is likely to cut up more than it would do normally. But if you play him at this point, you're going to get 4 places with most firms. It could easily cut up to 13, 14, and you'll only get 3 places on the day. So I was quite sweet on him, 16s each way.
Okay, Chris Gordon's got a couple of chances. I asked him, are both going to run?
Yeah, we're both good to go. You know, it's going to be, it might be getting good to firm, but both of them have run on that type of ground, and it's very different this time of year. Aucunrisque, I didn't let him run at Huntingdon early on in the season because it was quick ground at the beginning of the season. It's been dry all summer and most of last spring. It's very different now. You know, Newbury did get very soft at the last meeting we were at. So, you know, I'd imagine it's going to be pretty dead, but both of them plan on running, definitely.
Highway 102, he's a slightly bigger price with the bookmakers. Do you see it that way?
No, not at all. No, I've look, at the end of the day, when you look at Paul's horse, that Hacker de Plaise or something, whatever, look at the form of that Ascot race. And, you know, we won very, very nicely that day. Obviously, the handicapper didn't miss us, but that boy went and won at Cheltenham last time out. He went up, he's got a £5 penalty. Yeah. You know, we did hack up at Ascot, and I'd like to think we'd have a better chance than that, but obviously not. But, and then his run against Constitution Hill was fantastic. You know, we went in there, the big race we wanted to go to at Ascot, the Betfair Exchange, was cancelled. So I thought, oh God, there's nowhere for that horse to run. We might as well try and take on Constitution and get a bit of prize money, which he did. And I think if you watch him, you know, he was 6 lengths behind the mare. And I think if you watch that race, Jamie looked after him very well. He didn't give him a smack or anything. So that form was obviously very strong. So he'd have to do a career best. But, you know, the form of him this season's been strong.
Annual Victus, he's entered earlier in the card. Would he go?
He'll definitely run. Yeah, you know, on his day, he's a good horse. He can be a character. He hasn't actually run at Newbury before. He seems to love spotting where the stables are on the racetrack. So he does have a little look, but he hasn't been in Newbury before, and hopefully we can outwit him. But yeah, I might think about headgear. I don't know yet. But you know, we stay the trip while we're bounce out and have a good crack. He's in good form.
Good stuff. Busy Saturday. Hopefully a couple of live chances. Hopefully he can win the big one. Thanks for your time, Chris. We'll see you soon.
Top man. Cheers, Nat.
Best luck to Chris Gordon with his 2 runners. Okay, what wins it? Well, you mentioned what you fancy in the Betfair. Yeah,
Master Chewy takes my eye at this moment in time. I'd imagine Hacker de Plaise will run really well because he's been very consistent in these top level handicap hurdles as well. But even with a 15-16 runner race, whatever it may end up being, I think it's still going to be very competitive looking at the entries.
What wins?
Yeah, maybe playing for more place than win purposes is a bet because he's top weight and maybe slightly more exposed. But I just think First Street's nailed on to run really well. 4th place at this point, make up to 3, he'd do for me.
Okay, that's at Newbury on Saturday. You've also got the Game Spirit. Warwick's got a good card, the Kingmaker. John Bon looks like he's going to go that direction. Entries are really good if they stand up.
Yeah, I was up Musselburgh for the double header on Saturday, Sunday, and Ian Hamilton came over, trainer of Tommy's Oscar, and was like, "Do you think Nicky will run that thing?" I was like, "Sorry to inform you, Ian, but I suspect he will because it's a race he's used as a stepping stone before." We know Tommy Oscar's a really high class operator, but it's about degrees, isn't it? And when you're coming up against a horse like John Bon, who's going to just glide around Warwick, I'm afraid he'll have his work cut out.
Haddock's Des Champs, I saw him win the handicap at Warwick last month and immediately thought that'll be the race that they go for. I wouldn't be surprised if he at least shook John Bon up a little bit, and I'm not saying he'll beat him, but it gives him proper competition, doesn't it?
His style will put some sort of pressure on him. It might make him produce a massive figure, mightn't it? I mean, I put him up for that handicap last week because I was just certainty and he didn't run, but yeah, I mean, it's not like they're just rolling over and letting John Bon have a penalty kick. There's 2 or 3 there that can threaten him briefly. Okay, that's a look at the weekend's action. Very shortly, we're going to put up a couple of horses that have caught the lads' eyes. Okay, it's time for the team tracker. Start with you, Mart.
Red Rookie, Sandown on Saturday. I've always felt like he was a horse with a big handicap winning him. Just feel like he might just be bubbling under and building his way back to his top form again this season. I thought for a long way he was going to win at Sandown on Saturday. He didn't quite finish off his race as you'd have hoped. But Emma Lavelle's been quite quiet. They've only had a handful of runners over the last couple of weeks. It was only his 2nd start of the season. I think I'd be forgiving of a weakish finish. He's still sort of fresh for the time of year as we head into the spring. And I think Red Rookie will probably drop a pound or 2, to be honest, for Saturday as well. And a mid-130s mark is well within his capabilities.
Dan?
Grivatana, a mare trained by Paul Nicholls. Now, she was beaten at a very short price on New Year's Eve, but I thought she looked right back on it in the Scottish County Hurdle on Saturday. It was a ridiculously strongly run race, and her and Lebowski ended up pressing each other. Even for Musselburgh, it was too far out. She did much better than Lebowski. She was still in front crossing the second last. She's got the option of mares races. That's the key angle. I think if Paul finds a little mares race for her next time, she'd be borderline good thing. She was second to First Street early in the season. I've just put up for a Betfair Hurdle, so we're basically pot committed there.
Okay, 2 horses hopefully to keep on the right side of over the coming weeks. Okay, something for the weekend. Lads are hopefully going to put up a horse that wins. That's what you meant to do. You're going to do it?
We can try, can't we?
I just want one that runs after last week.
150 at Newbury on Saturday is a 3-mile handicap hurdle. I'm putting up a horse called Jerash for Gary Moore. Quite lightly raced young horse, won at Plumpton last time out, beat a weights dropper Midnight Reflection that day, and he's unexposed over staying trips. So I think there's more to come from Jerash.
Twice raced only this season, but Fanny and Destravali's running 2 really big handicaps. He ran in the Old Hennessy on his reappearance, and then he ran at Weatherby behind Into Overdrive and Sounds Russian, which is about as good as it gets for form in the north. He's not had many goes around 3 miles. It clearly suits him well. He goes for the Denman Chase up against a short-priced Nichols horse in Hitman. Hitman stable had Clanders Oboe turned over by Eldorado Allen in the race last season. I can envisage a similar scenario. And on time form ratings, he's only £3 off him, but we can back him at 9-2.
Okay, you think he'll go, Negron?
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, it looks at a sound opening. Venetia's pretty clever, isn't she, with these Saturday prizes? And I'd imagine she'd see the potential holes in Hitman. I still don't believe he's really a 3-miler. And then add into the mix that he bled in the King George as well.
That does look a good race to have a pop at
Yeah.
this moment. I'd imagine Hitman could easily be sort of a mover the wrong way in the market, if you like, before Saturday anyway, given that he's a strong
We
favourite.
can reveal our secrets. Mark, we were going to go head-to-head.
We were nearly with Eldorado Allen, but I think both agreeing that Hitman was one to be against anyone.
Last time that happened, Dysart got beaten, so he went quite well.
Okay, there's a couple to look forward to, hopefully, at the weekend. Hopefully racing is fine at Newbury, as in ground-wise. Looking forward to work at all the action back. And next week to do it all again. Thanks for your company. See you soon.